Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Money with Alpha. I might sound a little different this week because I've got a little bit of a cold, so I'm sounding a bit snuffly. Still feel all right though. It's just I don't know. It's in the sinuses. It's a time of year here at the moment. Today, I wanted to talk to you about something that I'm so passionate about, which I'll try not to go into too much of rabbit holes because I can, is on how to get started with money management. And I've spoken a little bit about what money systems are and what money management is in previous episodes, so check those out. I really wanted to start today to show you that how to get started, because that's often the biggest hurdle I see with people and with clients, particularly. Like, I just don't know what to do next. There's so many things I could do. What's the one thing that I need to do next? And that's what I want to go through today. And also how to figure out what that also is for you, because depending on where you're at and what you need to do. So this may be a bit too basic, or sometimes it's good to go back to basics as well. So it's good to kind of go, okay, well, do I do this? Do I do that? And there's 5 elements that I'm going to talk about. And you may be already okay with some of those, but others you might need to refresh or be reminded about. So I'll just tell you what the 5 are first, and then I'll get stuck into the detail. So number one, number one is having the desire and the mindset to be able to manage your money. So if you believe you can't, then you won't. Anyway, I will delve into that more shortly. Number two, visibility. You have to be able to have visibility of your finances. If you don't, then that's something to fix first. But visibility is number two. Number three is divide and conquer. And I don't mean amongst people or family members. This is all just you here I'm talking to. So I'll get into what I mean by that. Number four is every dollar has to have a purpose. And number five is decide, implement, and stay consistent. Extremely important. So I'll go into a bit more detail about what each of those are and what I mean by the term, because trying to distill it down into something a bit memorable and catchy is sometimes like, okay, but what does that now mean? So I'm going to tell you. So the first one is desire and mindset. And that is probably one of the biggest hurdles I see with a lot of people is there's so many beliefs and stories. And my last podcast, I talked about stories and I've talked about beliefs as well. If you need some more details and more tools and strategies around those, have a listen to them. But the desire to do it is key, because if you don't really want to do this and you're doing it because you think you should, or you saw some TikTok video that said that you should, and you're like, oh, I don't really know if I even want to do this. Can I even do this? That doubt will seep into everything else that I go through in the next 4 steps after this one. So that desire first doesn't have to be like a burning desire, but that has to be like a little flicker there. And so I get a lot of clients who come to me relatively late in their working life. And they're like, okay, I can't put this off anymore. I have to do this now. And when it comes to money, the earlier you start, the better. However, doing this at any point in time is better than not doing it at all. So learning the fundamentals and being able to manage your money and being on top of it. Don't outsource this to professionals. You can't outsource this to your partner. You need to be aware of what's going on with your own money. No one else is going to be as passionate about it and as connected to it as you are. So that's the first thing, is then working on the mindset that goes with why that desire is not there. So there's a bit of a loop there. So, but I'm not going to go into the detail of that today, because I do talk about that in more detail elsewhere and in other podcast episodes. Number two is the visibility. You have to be able to see your money. If you don't have access to your accounts, get access. If you've allowed a partner or a business partner to manage the finances, you need to be able to at least see the balances, see what's coming in, what's going out, have some visibility of where things are at. If you don't, that is an issue in and of itself. The reason why is where I would caution you to think about, is there a reason why you don't have access? Is it just because you've never wanted to and yet your partner is very open to showing you? Or is there a reason behind why your partner's not showing you? That is a bigger problem, which I will not cover here, but I would highly recommend that you stop listening right now and go find a financial counselor. There's financial counseling hotlines out there, but that's a serious issue if you cannot and you are not allowed to get access to seeing your finances. Very important that you be able to at least see them. Have access to them it's also essential as well. But what I'm talking about here today is, if you've had a lack of desire in the beginning and now that desire is creeping up, the fire is being fanned inside you, and you're like, okay, I think I'm getting to the point where I actually really want to, and I know I need to look at my money, then I need to start looking at it, like literally. put your eyeballs on the bank statements. These days, it's no longer like physical money, it's numbers on a screen, but get access, figure out where all your accounts are, what the balances all are, what type of accounts they are. Are they savings accounts? Is it a business account? Is it a personal account? If you're a business owner, I really hope you have a business account and a separate personal account, transaction accounts. Savings accounts sort of hinges off them too, but you need to be able to have your business and your personal finances separated. Makes it a lot easier at tax time, and it'll make your accountant's life so much easier as well. And I speak from experience, having been a tax accountant I'm just going to digress very quickly. We had a client when I was working at KPMG many years ago who came to us. He was an expat who'd just kind of come back into the country to live. And he had 10 years worth of tax returns that he hadn't completed. So it was my lucky job because at the time I was, a newbie into the industry to try and source tax return. Like we couldn't even do it electronically. I had to try and get hold of the paper copy from 10 years ago. And this was already like 20 years ago. So yeah, anyway. So try and stay on top of it is, I suppose, the question there, or the statement there. But having that visibility is really important because then it'll make the next step easier, because if you haven't got your accounts all set up, having sort of the divide and conquer aspect of this, which was number 3, was when I say divide and conquer, I mean divide up your money, having them in separate accounts. I've spoken to some clients recently where they're like, I have a transaction account for my business, and then I have an account that all the extra money kind of just goes into and sits there, and I pay taxes out of that if there's enough in there, and pay bills and whatever else again if there's enough in there. And I was like, okay, that must make it really difficult to manage when specific things come in, like tax bills. Every quarter you get your BAS statement and you've got to pay an installment rate, and there's a dollar figure attached to that. Everything would always come as a surprise to a certain extent, because if you don't have the visibility over it and you're not dividing up your money to cover certain things, then it makes it very difficult and very uncomfortable as well. Like, for instance, I think I said this on a previous podcast, the fourth quarter of our financial year is where a lot of my really big bills come in. So I have my visibility there. I have all of my account, and then I have money in certain accounts to pay for this real spike in bills, so that when the bills come in, I'm not as shocked, although exchange rates can sometimes like bump that up a bit. You're like, oh, wow, that's a little bit higher than I thought it was going to be. But that's okay. I got money sitting there to cover it because I was anticipating, and I'm like, conservative me, I had a little bit of an extra buffer in there as well. So that's where the dividing comes into it. And you do this in your personal life too. I know we focus as business owners very much on our business finances, and that's our wealth building growth kind of space. But you also need to be looking at your personal finances and building wealth and growing in that space too. So you pay yourself out of your business, hopefully. That money also then needs to have purpose. Its sole purpose is not just to pay for school fees and groceries and whatever else that you need to pay out of the household budget. You also can do things with it. You're hopefully paying yourself super, so there's an investment aspect already there. Saving for things, saving for holidays, saving for fun. Like there's so much. Like, I went and had some fun on the weekend, and not that I don't have fun, I do have a lot of fun, but I go and I do some resting. I went to Emma Lovell's Rest and Receive retreat, and I've come back with a cold. And I was like, yeah, that's probably pretty accurate. I haven't like rested for a while. I rest and bingo. Immune system's like, oh, we're going to test you now. Anyway, but that's having your different funds in there for fun, for emergencies, or rainy days, however you want to call it. Having money set aside if you want to save for a car, or if you've got school fees, whatever it may be, then you can split out your money that way, and then also invest personally too. Because also as a personal, like from a tax perspective, you've got tax rates that there's a tax-free threshold, which you don't have as a small business owner in Australia. So there's elements to kind of managing your money together that is really powerful, because then you get to benefit from whichever side of the business or the personal fence that you can actually work in. And your accountant can help you optimize this as well. But they can't do that unless you have the visibility, well, the desire, the visibility, and the money kind of set up in a way that they can actually give you some advice in that space. So quite often, if you've got a tax accountant, you have one for your business. If you've got a different one for your personal, or even the same one, come at them with that group look, or the sort of the joined financial position. You're like, okay, so how could I like be a bit more tax effective here? But again, they can't help you effectively if they don't have the information. So yeah, so divide and conquer with number three. Number four is give every dollar a purpose. That is really important because if we don't, I mean, we think about our lives. If our lives don't have a purpose, we kind of wander aimlessly. We're sort of like, yeah, we don't know what we're, do we want to go this path? Do we want to go this path? Like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. As a business owner, if you're not talking to your customer and you're not clear about your messaging, it won't land either. So that clarity and having a purpose for what, the words that you're speaking, the money that you're earning is really, really important. So it's very much mindset all around. And it's not to say, oh, how deep is the purpose? The purpose could literally be wanting to go to a music festival and being able to travel there and stay in a nice hotel and, having, there's dollars for that, or there's dollars for saving for school fees, or you might need a new printer in your business, or you might want to wrap your car to make it branded as well. Like there might be certain things, but and the purpose doesn't always have to be for things or expenses either. It could be to have a bit of a buffer there to make you feel a little bit more secure. And you can put a limit on that too. I did that with my personal finances. I was like, this is the amount that I want to have sitting in my buffer account. Once I reached it, I was like, I'd sort of been so in the habit of putting money in there that I just kept putting money in. I was like, well, how enough is enough? And then I thought, well, okay, well, once I've reached this limit, I calculated it out. So there was sort of reasoning behind it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let it sit there and gather interest every month. And now I'm going to reassign what I was putting in that account into my invest account, which is going to be earning more than the interest that it's earning in that buffer account. But I want the cash there for very specific, sort of hopefully never going to happen kind of reasons. So that's where if I didn't have that purpose, and just as a real life example for somebody who teaches this stuff, I learned this lesson also when we were saving for a car. So my old car, again, if you've been listening to my story, I had a very old car before. I bought it when it was 2 years old and then hung on to it for 20 years. And so I drove this car, loved it. It was my little green machine. It was the first car I'd bought myself when I was a, grad accountant. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. And then I've just kind of kept it because there was nothing wrong with it. It ran well, it was efficient, all of those things. I used to get teased a lot, by the way, but that's a side story. And then it came to a point where it was going to cost way too much to fix. Like bigger and bigger things were starting to go wrong with it. And I think the last sort of quote I had to fix it was like $3,500. I was like, oh my gosh, the car's not even worth that. So, and I'd been expecting this too because it's an old car. Things have a life. So I'd been saving up for the car, a new one, and then go and buy the new one. And then great, happy days, newer car, still a, reasonable. It was also 2 years old. And then the money that I'd been putting aside for the car, I had lost that purpose because the purpose had been completed buying the car. And I just realized that money it just disappeared. It took me about 4 months to realize. I thought, oh my gosh, what's been happening to this money? So I had absolutely no idea. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to rein that back in. I got so used to not having that money and putting it aside for something. I need to like pull that back in again. So this is the real importance of every dollar needs a purpose. So I have experienced that myself. And now I've reassigned it to another bucket and another account that goes for something else. And it's not to do with buying anything either. So it's actually, it's really cool too. So it's gone from a thing to something else that I have in my world. So that's the real importance of every dollar having a purpose. And these will build on themselves. If I said to you every dollar has to have a purpose, you'd just like look at me blankly because the desire's not there yet. The visibility's not there yet. And you haven't got your account set up. So you'd be like, well, how do I give every dollar a purpose? You haven't done all the steps beforehand to actually understand or be able to even implement that, which is why number five then becomes decide what you're going to do, how much you're going to do, and implement it. Set up the accounts, start transferring whatever leftover money you have every month, split it up amongst the accounts, and then stay consistent. Keep doing it. If you're a business owner and your income fluctuates, use percentages and then manually transfer to these accounts every month. Look at ways you can optimize your expenses. See if you can have a little bit more left over each month so that you can then assign which bucket, or I use the money pie concept, which pie slice it goes to. So, but then whatever you do, you have to keep doing it, and you optimize it as you go as well. It's not to say that what you do now is exactly the same as what you'll do in a year or 2 years or even 5 years, because things change. Like I said, I didn't need new car anymore. Hopefully this one will last me 20 years. I'm not going to save for a car now for a little while because I know I keep cars for a very long time. The car I had before that, I had for 7 years. It was even older. So it was, yeah. Anyway. So you might have children in school, so you've got school fees. When they finish school, you don't need to pay the school fees anymore. So where are you going to reassign that money? So you have to still, at a holistic level, be aware of that divide and conquer, step three. And so you can iterate between these steps as well. And sometimes when we up level, we'll be like, oh my gosh, the desire then has to kick back in and the mindset, because you've gone from here, see my hand here, then you've gone to here, and then all of a sudden you've got to go up there, and you're like, oh my gosh, your mindset has to now grow to help you grow into this new vision and identity that you have, so that and then your money has to support you as well. So it's a very iterative process, all of this. Not like you do all the steps and you're done, that's it, legs up, I don't have to do anything. No. The initial work is a little bit harder and takes a little bit more effort and time. But after that, it becomes a lot easier and the faster that you get to do all this as well. So your mindset goes a little bit faster. The desire is there and the mindset catches up, or the mindset is there and the desire catches up, and it all really goes a lot faster. Then the visibility, you have already a certain amount, so that part is generally okay. You may need to make some adjustments to the divide and conquer part because some accounts might need to change. And then every dollar has a purpose. You start making more money. If it's percentage based, then it goes around. But then you might find that you've got a lot extra and you're like, you know what? I could actually do this if I really wanted to. Now I can really do the whole blue sky thinking. I can think a lot bigger, and everything then kind of elevates with it too. The energy, the money, all of that starts to then flow just from starting with a desire to manage your money better and being consistent at doing it and implementing it. So this is why I get so excited when people are like, "Oh, I've been putting off looking at my money." I was like, "Just you wait to see what this can do for you, and then you'll start to get as excited as I am when you start to realize the power of looking at your money and being in charge of it, and being able to actually make the decisions and the implementation, and not giving your power away to anyone else who manages it." So I might be over dramatizing that a little bit, but I really want you to get the message. So hopefully you found that clear. I'll go through those 5 steps again. So the first one is having the desire and the mindset to support actually wanting to manage your money. The second one is having the visibility over the money and being able to see where everything is, what accounts you've got, what's in each account, what type of account they all are. Number 3 is dividing and conquering. So having your money separated out for separate things, personal finances, business finances separate, and then sub accounts under those to make sure that you can pay the things you need to pay and also grow. Number 3, every dollar has a purpose. Or sorry, number 4, two, every dollar has a purpose, has to have a purpose. Number 5 is decide on what you're going to do and how much, implement, and then stay consistent. So if you have any questions on that and you're still not clear exactly what you need to do next, happy to answer questions. So please reach out, because I do not want you to be stuck because there's just one thing that is possibly holding you back, and there's a how question that you need answered. So with that, have a wonderful rest of your week. And yes, I'll see what topic we come up with next week. Bye.